1%. That is it. 1%. Sounds like nothing, right? Like rounding error. Like the cost of a cheap cup of coffee compared to your whole grocery bill. But here is the truth that the financial industry has spent decades hoping you would never sit down and actually calculate. That 1% fee, quietly attached to your retirement account or your mutual fund or your investment portfolio, will cost you $350,000 over 30 years. Not because the market crashed. Not because you made bad bets. Simply because someone was skimming a small slice off the top every single year, while you were busy living your life. So who is taking that money, and why does nobody talk about it? Right now, in America, there are roughly 100 million people invested in some kind of retirement or brokerage account. And the overwhelming majority of them have no clear picture of what they are actually paying in fees. Not because they are not smart. Not because they do not care. But because the financial industry has made fee disclosure deliberately complicated, buried in prospectuses that run 40 pages long, written in language that requires a law degree to decode. You signed something. You checked a box. And somewhere in that paperwork, costs were outlined in ways designed to be overlooked rather than understood. This matters right now more than ever. Interest rates have shifted. Market returns going forward are projected to be more modest than the last decade. Every single dollar of unnecessary fees you are paying is a dollar that cannot compound. And compounding, as you probably know, is the whole game. The entire engine of long-term wealth building depends on keeping as much of your money working for you as possible. When fees quietly drain that engine, you do not feel it today. You feel it 30 years from now when you look at what you have and try to understand why the number is so much smaller than it should be. Let us start with the fee that most people know exists but dramatically underestimate. The expense ratio on mutual funds. If you have a 401k through your employer, there is a very good chance you are invested in actively managed mutual funds. These funds have a team of portfolio managers, analysts, researchers, all getting paid. And that cost gets passed to you in the form of an annual expense ratio. The industry average for actively managed funds sits around 1.02% per year. That sounds manageable. But here is what it actually means. If you invest $10,000 today and earn 7% annually before fees, in 30 years you would have approximately $76,000. Now subtract that 1% fee, reducing your real return to 6%, and you end up with around $57,000. That is $19,000 gone on a single $10,000 investment. Now multiply that across a lifetime of contributions growing into hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you start to see where that $350,000 figure comes from. The fee never feels painful because it is never deducted as a visible line item. It is simply the difference between the return your money earned and the return that shows up in your account. And expense ratios are just the beginning. The second layer most investors never see is called the 12b-1 fee. This is a marketing and distribution fee that mutual funds are legally allowed to charge and legally required to disclose, but almost never explain in plain language. These fees, typically ranging from 0.25 to 1% annually, are used by fund companies to pay brokers and financial advisors for recommending their products to you. Think about that structure for a moment. Your advisor may be recommending a fund not because it is the best option for your portfolio, but because the fund company is paying them to recommend it. You are funding the sales pitch that was used to sell you. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is a documented, legal business practice that exists because most investors do not know to ask about it. A woman in Atlanta once came to a fee-only financial planner after 20 years of investing through a major brokerage. When they pulled apart her portfolio together, she discovered she had been paying nearly 1.8% annually in combined fees, more than half of which went to distribution costs she had never been informed about in any meaningful way. Over those 20 years she had handed over nearly $60,000 she did not know she was spending. Now let us talk about the third layer, the one that tends to hit hardest for people who think they have already made the smart move of working with a financial advisor. Most traditional financial advisors charge an assets under management fee, commonly called an AUM fee. The standard is 1% of your total portfolio per year. So if you have $500,000 invested, you are paying $5,000 annually, every year, whether the market goes up or down, whether your advisor takes one call with you or 20. Now, good financial advisors absolutely earn their fee. Planning, behavioral coaching, tax strategy, estate coordination, these are real and valuable services. The problem is that many investors are paying full AUM fees and receiving very little beyond a quarterly statement and a once-a-year phone call. And again, the compounding math is brutal. 1% of a growing portfolio is not a flat $5,000. It is $5,000 this year, then $6,000 when your portfolio grows, then $8,000, then more. Over a 30-year retirement accumulation phase, the total wealth transferred from your account to an advisor's firm through AUM fees alone can rival what you originally invested. The fee grows as your wealth grows. You never stop paying it. Here is the fourth piece of the puzzle, and this one tends to make people genuinely angry. Surrender charges and redemption fees. If you were ever sold an annuity, a variable life insurance product, or certain classes of mutual funds, you may have a surrender schedule buried in your contract. This means that if you try to move your money before a specific period, often 5 to 10 years, you will pay a penalty. These charges can run as high as 7 or 8% of your account value in the early years. The practical effect is that you are locked in. You cannot easily shop for better options. You cannot respond to changes in your life. And if the product you were sold turns out to be a poor fit, leaving costs you money you cannot afford to give up. A retired teacher in Ohio discovered this when he tried to roll an annuity into a more flexible IRA. The surrender charge on his contract was 6% of his account balance, which at that point was around $200,000. He owed $12,000 simply for trying to access his own retirement savings and move them somewhere more efficient. He paid it, because staying was going to cost him more in the long run, but that is not a choice anyone should be forced into without fully understanding it going in. So what do you actually do about this? Start this week, not someday, this week. Pull out every account statement you have. Every 401k, every IRA, every brokerage account, every annuity. For each one, find the expense ratio of every fund you are holding. If you cannot find it on your statement, go to the fund company website and search the fund name plus the word prospectus. The expense ratio will be in the first few pages. Add them up. Then search for any 12b-1 fees listed in that same document. Write down your AUM fee if you work with an advisor. Then total it all. Most people who do this exercise for the first time are genuinely shocked by the number they arrive at. Next, compare what you are paying against what is available. Vanguard, Fidelity, and Schwab all offer broad index funds with expense ratios below 0.05%. That is not 1%. That is 0.05%. The performance difference between a low-cost index fund and most actively managed funds, over the long term, consistently favors the index fund after fees are accounted for. This is not a fringe opinion. It is the conclusion of decades of academic research and the reason why the largest sovereign wealth funds in the world use index strategies as their foundation. If you work with an advisor, ask them directly how they are compensated. Ask specifically whether they receive any payments from fund companies for recommendations. Ask for a written breakdown of every fee associated with your account. A good advisor will answer these questions clearly and without hesitation. If the answers are vague or the conversation feels uncomfortable, that discomfort is telling you something important. You cannot build wealth efficiently while silently losing ground to fees you do not understand. The financial industry counts on complexity. It counts on you not asking. It counts on the numbers being small enough in any single year that you brush past them. Your job is to stop brushing past them. Your returns belong to you. Protect them. Subscribe to AcumenFi for more tools that give you the